It was Christmas Day, 1993, when Buena Vista decided to release Tombstone in theaters, precisely 6 months before the once powerful juggernaut Kevin Costner released his biopic on the famous Wild West lawman Wyatt Earp. Both films center on the same men and retell the same events, just two different approaches. I'll talk more about that later in the review. Tombstone begins when Wyatt Earp and his family make it off the train in Tucson, Arizona, where they must travel further south to reach Tombstone, a small mining town that recently saw a big boom in silver mining, and these guys want to make it rich.
Hurts, don't it?
At this point in Wyatt's life, he has finally given up the badge and left Dodge City. He has also found a common wife, whose laudanum addiction has become out of control. He is accompanied by his two brothers, Morgan and Virgil, and their wives. He has already become famous for his time at Dodge, being known for his unfavored tactics of no guns allowed within city limits, and his aggressive disarming move, pistol whipping to the back of the head. The mayor of Tombstone approaches them for law enforcement jobs, but instead, they decide to buy into a poker table at one of the saloons.
Johnny, I apologize. I forgot you were there. You may go now.
Just leave that shotgun.
Eventually, we meet the rest of the characters in this fate-bound moment of life. First, there's the unsavory group of gents who wear red sashes around their waists, known as the Cowboys, who are known for robbing, murdering, and anything else horrible under the Mexican sun. Though there is a whole gang of these losers, we only need to know three: Curly Bill, Johnny Ringo, not that musician guy, and Ike Clanton. In fact, this story doesn't exist without Ike Clanton surviving the vendetta and taking his problems to court. And then there's the most iconic character in this film, Doc Holliday. Once a prominent dentist from the East Coast, now tracks dirt in the Southwest desert and hopes the climate will help stop his TB infection. Doc is intelligent, having gone to school in a time where that was rare, and has developed a name for himself due to heavy drinking and gambling addictions. He has already met the Earps a few years back and has become friends with them, and now everyone is here in Tombstone. It begins one night when Curly Bill leaves an opium den, high off his butt trying to shoot down the moon, when Marshal Fred White intervenes and tries to calm Curly Bill down. Bill slips up and accidentally shoots Fred White dead. This causes Morgan and Virgil Earp to take back their roles as lawmen. They also arrest Curly Bill, which pisses off his gang. Wyatt tries to convince them they're wrong and that someone else should do it, but they don't listen to him. And as days pass on, the Cowboys are getting tense about the Earps being the new law dogs in town. This tension builds until one afternoon, while several members of the Cowboys are resting in the OK Corral, the three Earp brothers and Doc Holliday approach the men, and the famous shootout begins. This is where Ike Clanton gets lucky and survives, unlike his brother. The conflict doesn't end there either. One night while Virgil was making rounds in town, he was attacked by an assassin that left him maimed, and his brother Morgan was murdered in a different attack. Fearing for their lives, the surviving members of the Earps leave Tombstone, except for Wyatt Earp. Now armed with the silver badge of justice, U.S. Marshal Wyatt Earp forms a posse with the help of his friend Doc Holliday, and together they forge the end of the story known as, well, instead of me, why not let Doc say it himself?
Let's finish it.
Indeed, sir. The last charge of Wyatt Earp and his immortals.
The last third of this movie is just the good guys collecting red sashes from the Cowboys, by either killing them or scaring the living shit out of them. Both Wyatt and Doc have their own special moments in this act that we need to talk about. One day down by a river, Wyatt and his friends had finally tracked down a group of cowboys, and guns were drawn. Wyatt, in a fit of passionate rage, begins crossing the river, shooting down his enemies, with only one bullet ever hitting him, and it didn't even hit his body. It was his coat, as if God himself was manipulating Wyatt's hitbox.
No! Son of a bitch! No!
Then there's the famous duel. A duel so famous, even if you've never seen this film, you've definitely heard the line.
I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry.
The moment we have all been waiting for, two incredibly fast pistoleros testing their might on one another. Doc Holliday versus Johnny Ringo. And this match is over before you know it. But it was a satisfying answer. We all wanted to know, how much faster was Doc to Ringo? They built this fight up from the beginning of the movie, when we were first introduced to Ringo and his speed outside of a church. And then during one night of Wyatt's poker games, the two men get into what might be a questionably homoerotic scene, with them reciting Latin to each other before twirling holding objects in their hands, like they're auditioning for the next Now You See Me. But as magical as this all is, no one actually knows for sure who killed Johnny Ringo in real life, because there was no duel like it in the movie. He died after being shot by a rifle during Wyatt's murderous ascension at the river, which, yes, the real Wyatt Earp actually did survive crossing the river. But Doc never was a great gunman, but he did survive the vendetta and lived out the rest of his days in a sanatorium in Colorado. The film is not historically accurate, so much so I'd say it's a more romanticized version of the Wild West, and that helps give heart to the story of Tombstone. The romanticized story comes from the hit New York Times bestseller, the follow-up to A Walk Through Life featuring Jesus, the Book of Revelations. At the beginning of the film, we see the cowboys massacre a wedding, which leads to a priest to condemn them, speaking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. This is why when you see our heroes, they are always lined up walking towards their enemy. This also makes you realize it's about 2 different gangs fighting over their territory, and the Earps might be bad guys. Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer lead this film with strong performances, where you actually believe Wyatt about the things he says. And Val Kilmer is known to have done some method acting. Everybody else really pitched in and made this movie special, so it doesn't matter if it's historically right. I give this film a 5 out of 5 stars. It's a damn good film. It's got action, romance, gang violence, gun violence, white men dressing up and talking funny, and every now and then, you might see another actor you might recognize, like a young Billy Bob Thornton, or the guy who played Lyle from George of the Jungle, or better yet, a Billy Zane who still has hair. As great fun as this whole film packs in, I have a personal connection with this film. For when I first saw this, I was in high school, and at the time, some historians dug up some court scripts between Ike Clanton and Wyatt Earp. Ike went to the other authorities and created a court case against the Earps that they were victims of an ambush. Some say that Earp was in the wrong, while others say Ike was in the wrong. It really doesn't matter because of how long ago this happened, and Wyatt had already killed mostly anyone else willing to speak against him. I had never seen this, nor had I heard the story of the OK Corral. I busied myself with the Lincoln County War in New Mexico when I was younger, but the impact the movie had and finding out it was inspired by true events got me excited. Then, not even a week later, I found myself in the real Tombstone. To have this unique opportunity to learn about a good film that tells a great legend that was inspired by true events, and you end up standing in the same streets just a few days afterward, it makes you feel a little closer to that magic. Now, I gave this film a 5 out of 5, but I will say this. I'm a fan of westerns, but by no means would I consider this film one of the best ones. Top 10? Yes. Top 5? No. It's enjoyable for everyone. On the other side of this is the 1994 Kevin Costner film about the life of Wyatt Earp. It's a very long film, and it will literally take you from when Wyatt was a little boy to his time in Alaska searching for gold. Kevin Costner stars and directs the picture, with Dennis Quaid playing Doc Holliday. The 2 actors playing Wyatt do fine in their own rights, but I lean towards Costner's depiction of Wyatt because he's got a little more thought behind his eyes, while Kurt is more stern and dark. But when you compare the 2 playing Doc, just don't. Val Kilmer killed it in this role. It might have been his best. Like, come on! He's so cool how he comes in shrugging off his coat while trying to intimidate these helpless nerds. From now on, this is the only way I enter a room. I'm shrugging my clothes off.